times more magnificent and more developed than modern-day Europe. Well, you won't believe it until you know how much Brics has announced that it will invest in Africa. After World War II, the U.S. invested an amount equal to $150 billion of today's money to reconstruct Europe. Compared to this, Brics, and especially China, have announced to invest over $800 billion in Africa. That's nearly 6 times higher than what it costs to reconstruct Europe. But how will this money be used, and what do Brics actually want to do with Africa and get in return? In this video, let's know Brics' strategy about Africa so you know what will be happening with Africa in the next few years. Let's get started. Africa's relationship with Brics marks a historic turning point, as the bloc seeks to reshape global economic frameworks and challenge decades of Western dominance. To understand why this shift is so significant, it's essential to consider both the historical context and the transformative potential that Brics brings to Africa's future. We know that Africa's economic struggles cannot be separated from its colonial past and the subsequent policies imposed by Western financial institutions. During the 1980s, institutions like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank implemented structural adjustment programs that devastated African economies. These programs forced nations to devalue their currencies, remove subsidies, privatize critical industries, and open markets to international competition before their economies were ready. The result was predictable. Local industries collapsed, unemployment soared, and poverty deepened. The effects of these policies linger to this day, leaving many African nations wary of Western-style development assistance. But the injury has already been done. Those structural adjustment programs ensured African economies could not get out of the structural failures encoded in the IMF-imposed system. Therefore, it's no surprise to see that whenever African countries want to get rid of Western financial order, their economies start to collapse. However, in this context, BRICS offers a refreshing alternative. Unlike Western institutions, Brics emphasizes partnership, mutual respect, and a focus on infrastructure and industrialization. A prime example of this approach is the Tanzania Standard Gauge Railway project, which connects multiple African countries, including Kenya, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and the DRC. Unlike the piecemeal projects often funded by the West, this multi-country initiative shows a vision of regional integration and long-term economic development. Such projects address one of Africa's most significant barriers to growth: fragmented markets and poor connectivity between nations. However, Brics' vision for Africa extends beyond infrastructure. The bloc recognizes the continent's potential as a future manufacturing powerhouse. With 60% of the world's arable land, vast mineral resources, and a growing young workforce, Africa is uniquely positioned to lead the next wave of global industrialization. However, this potential has remained largely untapped due to inadequate infrastructure, lack of access to capital, and a historical over-reliance on exporting raw materials rather than developing value-added industries. One of the most groundbreaking aspects of Brics' engagement is its challenge to the global financial system. For decades, African nations have relied on the US dollar for international trade, making them vulnerable to currency fluctuations and restrictive fiscal policies dictated by the West. BRICS aims to create alternatives, such as a new reserve currency or direct trade using local currencies. This shift reduces dependency on Western-controlled systems like SWIFT and enables African countries to retain more wealth within their economies. A critical area where Brics is driving change is in manufacturing. The Dangote oil refinery in Nigeria serves as a case study for the transformative potential of local industrialization. Despite being a major oil producer, Nigeria has historically imported most of its refined petroleum, draining resources and increasing costs for consumers. Dangote's refinery, supported in part by international partnerships, has disrupted this pattern, creating jobs, reducing import dependency, and boosting local economic activity. This model can be replicated across other industries in Africa, particularly those reliant on imports, such as pharmaceuticals, textiles, and agricultural machinery. Countries producing raw materials can be industrialized to not only fulfill local demands but also increase exports. BRICS's focus on regional value chains further highlights its understanding of Africa's unique challenges and opportunities. Africa's economic future lies not in 54 fragmented markets, but in a unified continental market of over 1.4 billion people. By investing in infrastructure that connects countries and facilitates trade, Brics is laying the groundwork for a more integrated and competitive Africa. This approach aligns with the African Continental Free Trade Area, which aims to create a single market for goods and services across the continent. But what does Brics want in return?